At 12 years old, Nikola Tesla was falling apart. He counted every step he took. He calculated the volume of his food before eating it. Everything had to be divisible by 3, or he'd start over. He couldn't touch other people's hair. Pearls made him physically ill. And worst of all, he saw things. Images so vivid, so real, that he couldn't tell if they were actually there. He would reach out to touch them and find only air. Then he read a book. A single novel about a reckless young nobleman who rebuilt himself through sheer force of will. And something clicked. Tesla was born in 1856 in a small village in what is now Croatia, the son of a Serbian Orthodox priest. His father, Milutin, was brilliant but severe, a man who could recite entire books from memory and expected perfection from his children. But Milutin's hopes were pinned on the eldest son, Dane. Dane was the gifted one. Dane would follow him into the clergy. Dane was the future. Nikola lived in his shadow. Then, when Nikola was 7, Dane was killed, thrown from the family's Arabian horse. Nikola witnessed it. The family shattered. They moved to a new town. Milutin never recovered. And Nikola, now the surviving son, found that nothing he did could fill the void his brother left. "Anything I did that was creditable," Tesla later wrote, "merely caused my parents to feel their loss more keenly." So he grew up with little confidence in himself, and his mind, already strange, began to spiral. The visions had started early. Images would appear before his eyes without warning. Scenes he had witnessed, replaying with such clarity that he couldn't banish them. A funeral, a fire. They would appear in the darkness of his room and remain fixed in space, even as he pushed his hand through them. He developed rituals to cope. Counting, calculating, repeating actions until they felt right. He was terrified of germs, of evil spirits, of losing control entirely. By his own account, he was oppressed by thoughts of pain in life and death. He was 12 years old. Then he found a novel in his father's library. It was called Abarfi, written by a Hungarian author named Miklos Josika. Set in 16th century Transylvania, it told the story of a young nobleman named Oliver Abarfi. Reckless, undisciplined, absorbed by pleasure. But as the story unfolds, Abarfi transforms. Through sheer determination, through what Josika called firmness of will and energy of resolution, he remakes himself into a man of discipline and honor. Tesla read this book and recognized something. If Abarfi could reconstruct himself through willpower alone, so could he. "At first, my resolutions faded like snow in April," he later admitted. "But in a little while, I conquered my weakness and felt a pleasure I never knew before, that of doing as I willed." This was not positive thinking. This was engineering applied to the self. Tesla began treating his own mind as a system to be debugged. When a compulsion arose, he resisted it. When a vision appeared, he examined it. He tracked which inputs triggered which outputs. He studied his own patterns until he understood them. And slowly, what had once controlled him, he began to control. The images didn't stop, but Tesla discovered he could direct them. Instead of being tormented by scenes from his past, he began to deliberately conjure new ones. He would close his eyes and travel, in his mind, to cities he had never seen. He would imagine people, hold conversations with them, build entire worlds. However unbelievable, he wrote, they were just as dear to me as those in actual life. Then he realized something further. If he could visualize places and people with perfect clarity, he could visualize machines. He began designing inventions entirely in his imagination. No sketches, no prototypes. He would construct a device in his mind, set it running, leave it for weeks, then return to check for wear on the parts. I needed no models, drawings, or experiments, he said. I could picture them all as real in my mind. The affliction had become the method. Tesla trained himself to override his own impulses through repetition, through a kind of internal rehearsal. He would decide who he wanted to become, then practice that identity in his mind until desire and will became the same thing. That same principle exists today in a simpler form. If you want a structured way to practice it, there's an app called Affirmations. It's a daily tool for reinforcing the version of yourself you're trying to build. Link in the description. Now watch what happens when Tesla's method gets tested. At university in Graz, Tesla fell apart again. He had been a perfect student his first year, working from 3 in the morning until 11 at night, passing every exam with the highest marks. But when his father criticized his overwork instead of praising it, something broke. Tesla stopped studying. He started gambling. Cards became an obsession. To sit down to a game of cards, he later admitted, was for me the quintessence of pleasure. He played until he lost everything: tuition, savings, future. He dropped out, disappeared, was eventually found by his family playing cards for money in a pub. His father came to retrieve him. They argued. Tesla refused to come home. Milutin returned alone, and within weeks died of grief. Tesla spiraled further. Then his mother did something unexpected. She handed him a roll of bills and said, "Go and enjoy yourself. The sooner you lose all we possess, the better it will be. I know that you will get over it." Tesla never gambled again. "I conquered my passion then and there," he wrote. "I not only vanquished it, but tore it from my heart so as not to leave even a trace of desire." The method held. Years later, in Budapest, Tesla suffered a complete nervous breakdown. He was convinced he was going to die. His senses had become so acute he could hear a watch ticking 3 rooms away. The vibration of a distant train caused his whole body to shake. A friend named Anthony Zaghetti saved him, forcing him to exercise, to walk, to rebuild. And it was on one of those walks, in a city park at sunset, that everything came together. Tesla was reciting Goethe's Faust when the image appeared. A rotating magnetic field. A motor without sparks, without brushes, without the fatal flaw that had plagued every electrical machine ever built. He saw it fully formed, sharp, clear, solid. He drew it in the sand with a stick. The images were wonderfully sharp and clear, he said, and had the solidity of metal and stone. He had spent 6 years trying to solve this problem through logic. It came to him in a vision. The same visions that had once tormented him now delivered the invention that would power the modern world. Tesla did not overcome his strangeness. He remained obsessive, solitary, sleepless until his death at 86. But he had learned something at 12 that most people never learn at all. That the mind is not fixed, that it can be studied, redirected, rebuilt, and that the same forces which destroy a man, if he learns to command them, can make him extraordinary.